No, I mean, I think we've learned, and even in the short time I've been here, we've had games where, you get, coach has a great saying, getting humbled is only a week away in this league. So every single week you've got to show up and prepare the same way, make a great plan for these players, and allow it to come to life when we get there on Sunday. But our preparation's got to be airtight. We got to feel really good about it. Heading down there to play a team that, defensively, we've made the point to our guys, and our guys notice it watching the tape. I mean, they fly around, a bunch of juice in that front, to affect the quarterback. The back end, they do what they do, but they do it really well. So you got to really know your assignments. You got to be ready to adjust if they, have any looks that maybe we're not prepared for. And then every Sunday, it just feels like a grind no matter what in this league, just because they're really well coached, they're good players over there, and we got to play, really well offensively, to do our job to help the team win.
We don't know his status or anything for the weekend yet, but if Andrew Whitworth does rest this weekend, how's Joe Noteboom been doing for you guys in the reserve role?
He's been so dialed in all year. I know Coach Carberry is really excited about just his own personal growth and the work he puts in that nobody sees before practice, after practice, and then we still find ways to get him reps throughout the week and take some things off Big Wit throughout the week leading up to this week. So really no different for Joe as far as his preparation. It's just a matter of preparing like he always does, like he's going to play, and then as we get later in the week and starts to clear up that picture. But I got so much respect for Joe, and even the time he came in last year, I think about that Tampa game, last year on Monday night when best front in the league at the time, more sacks than anybody, and he goes in there, and we threw the ball a lot that game, drop back pass, and our confidence in Joe, I think, was stated that night when we were willing to do that with those types of elite rushers on both edges, and he played great. So a lot of confidence in Joe, and really, as I've said, the depth of that whole group is coming into camp is what we felt strongest about. Those five guys that have played in every game for us have just made us feel real great about the five guys that are out there, but we still feel the same way about all those guys behind those starters.
I'm assuming you knew about these sessions with on Thursday is the lineman kind of staying extra, and Andrew Whitworth told us about those a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Had you noticed Joe kind of seemed like he was taking a little extra time with a couple of young guys these last couple of weeks? Had you noticed that, and what do you make of that?
Yeah, one thing about Coach Carberry, you're going to know, I think he prides himself on being the last group off the field every day. Quarterbacks, we try to hang out for a little bit, get our extra work in, but always we're walking by those guys as they're still in the middle of things. And Matthew will tell you, he gets his extra work in, but he's a little on the older side, so we like to save some throws and get him off the field. But we always see those guys, and whether it's Coach Carberry with the whole group, and what I love about it is you'll see the tight ends stick around and work on combination blocks with those guys. You'll see, the backs over there sometimes with those guys picking on, blitz pickups and things like that. Any moment we can have with those guys on the grass, they're so in tune, to being coached and getting better every day, no matter what the result, good or bad, was the previous Sunday. And I think that's what's been really, I think, for our whole offense, whether it's guys staying after for extra throws, pitches and catches, the front working together, because when you're trying to gel a group, different fronts, different looks every single week, literally every moment matters in a game week preparation. And those guys, we're so lucky to have the work ethic we do, not only up front but across our whole unit, that helps us be at our best on Sunday, for sure. Good question, though.
Kevin, go ahead. Mike, Cooper Cup, did anything you saw in the preparation for this season tell you that he was going to get off to a start like this?
Well, really, it goes back to last year. I can remember some football conversations when I first got here. He's plays at such a high level, with his ability to separate and all the things that he does, but what people don't see is his preparation, and he's watching tape with the quarterbacks. He's, trying to understand through the lens of the quarterback. So when he's running these routes, man, zone, whatever it is, he can be on the same page with Matthew so they can play fast and the ball can come out. And we've had some unbelievable, just last week, you think about the improvement just between Matthew and him throughout the season of getting on the same page. But the throw he catches kind of on that corner ball early on was the same look we had early on in the Seahawks game. And little bit better execution. Cooper kind of doing it a little bit more how Matthew saw it, and Matthew turning it loose with, well before Cooper comes out of that cut and the ball drops in there. Like, oh, they must have done that 1,000 times together. But in fact, that was the first time they actually got to do that since the Seattle game, and you just see the growth. But I think everybody wants to make of it so much about, the things Cooper, maybe what's he doing. He's just a really good football player, and I think he's one of the best receivers in this league and really has been for a long time. He's connected with this quarterback, and those guys are taking us as an offense to kind of a different place.
It seems like every week we ask you about Matthew Stafford, but his QBR is number one in the league. We see what he does. What do you see that we're not seeing that's making him so elite?
Just his ability to, he's got this make it right factor where, those plays that I can think back last week, we were kind of facing it's almost the end of the third quarter there. We did not have the lead at the time, and we get a 3rd and 12, and Coach dials something up, and him and Cooper making that come to life for another explosive down the field in those 3rd and 10 plus, 2nd and 10 plus situations where most offensive coordinators are looking at the sheet. We call them get back on tracks, or, you're trying to, maybe a safe call to, play the field position game, get a punt off, see if our defense can get a stop. That's not how we operate. We're trying to convert. We're trying to, go down the field. We're trying to do different things that help set up the other phases of our offense to keep defenses off balance. And really, when I see those guys and I see Matthew with that, I call it the make it right factor. What he's doing, he's making a big-time play in a moment where our team really needed it. And he's done that all season long. And I know people can see that just watching the game. Anybody can see that watching the game, but it's what leads up to it that really separates him and the dialogue he has with not only Cooper, but, how we pick up pressures, the nuances to how guys are going to run routes, how Robert's going to win on that critical 3rd down early. All those things lead to what's happening on the field right now, and it's a lot of fun to be around and a lot of fun to watch him do what he does on Sundays.
Sean has always talked about his level of demeanor.
Yep.
They ran mic'd up with him this week.
Yeah.
You got to hear a little bit of that. Is that normal? Is that abnormal? How often have you seen that?
Going back and just kind of, you witness it from the sideline, and then I get to talk to him after every series. But it's the real-time audio, the dialogue between him and Brian, where you're exactly right. It's nobody loses their composure. Everybody's calm, cool, and collected. And we're dealing with looks sometimes that maybe we're relying on our training camp blitz walkthrough from the second week in Irvine, or maybe it's a look that we got 4 or 5 weeks ago versus an opponent that maybe we didn't give them a full-speed rep of it in practice, but those guys within the confines of the play clock. I think that's the most unique thing that people need to realize is all that's going on, and we're trying to make sure we don't take delays, don't go backwards, but still get really good plays off versus the looks we want to get. And that's all controlled by Matthew and how we've built it from the first day he got here, and his ownership of it and his ability, like you said, to just kind of continue to operate calm, cool, and collected, get us into the right looks, plays, protections. It's absolutely huge.
You guys stick with the same personnel on offense more than some teams, like the same
Yep.
3 receivers, the same running back, all that kind of stuff. How do you, as a coach, talk to the guys like Deshaun, the guys like Tutu, the guys like Sony, even, who don't get as many snaps as guys in their positions on other teams might get?
Yeah, I think they see it sometimes because a lot of times, we use tempo, we can't sub, we're trying to dictate, apply, different pressure to the defense on, different phases of the game. But those guys, I think, can see the benefit of it. And if I'm ever in there, I got to be ready to go. And I think with Deshaun, he affects the game so many different ways where maybe it doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but I can think back to a couple looks last weekend where, he took the top shelf off the defense and we had a ton of room to work either underneath or across the field, whatever it was. And I see Tutu getting better every single day, but also, making sure I remind him every day at the walkthroughs, practices, make sure you're watching how Cooper or Robert or Van or Deshaun operate. So when the time comes for you, because we're going to need everybody at some point, that he's getting better every single day and can just go in there, and we expect him to, seamlessly go in there and execute and have the same success. I mean, we have a lot of confidence in all those guys.
Hey, Kevin, weird question, but you've been around a lot of offensive linemen in your time. In the pre-warm-ups, not the warm-ups themselves, you guys are in alignments and all that stuff, but on game days in the pre-warm-ups, had you ever been around or seen a guy who does his pre-warm
I have not. Are you referring to Corbs?
Brian.
Brian? Well, I also just noticed today walking into our team meeting, Corbett was barefoot, and I said this trend is starting to spread amongst the O-line room. I haven't seen Big Wit walking around barefoot yet, but I'm sure, if it keeps going the way it's going, I'm sure all those guys will be. But, I think that's just, the unique ways guys prepare. I have not seen that before. My biggest concern is making sure he doesn't get stepped on so we're not, having a hobbling center throughout the game. But I think all those guys, and you could really, it's great you noticed that, but you could really notice all of them in their own way. That's what makes that group so special. Whether it's off the, at the end of a practice or before a game, they're not wasting a moment or doing anything counterproductive to help them play well. Thanks, guys. The barefoot question.
Sorry I'm late. Had to do the deal with the TV broadcasters.
Anything good? Can you tell us anything?
Moose is doing our game. You know, always excited to see those guys, Jen Hill and Chris Myers. Always fun to talk to those guys. They've been doing it for a long time. I love those guys, man. They're awesome to talk to. Nothing good, though, Jordan.
As long as you've been doing
Oh, you guys fighting again over me?
that, young lady.
Can you tell us what you'd like to see at inside linebacker now that Kenny Williams been traded?
You know, we're going to miss Kenny, you know, and not just Kenny, the football player, Kenny, the guy. You know, Kenny was a well-loved figure here in L.A. and what he was able to do. And as always, you know, it'd be dehumanized to tell you guys that you don't feel it from a coaching staff or you don't feel it from a player when you lose a guy like that because of a financial constraint or whatever the case may be. But, you know, let's let you know that it's still a business and there's some business aspects to it. But we expect the guys to step up. You know, we've invested in Ernest Brown. We invested in Troy. Those two players mainly will come on and step on and fill some of those shoes and fill those roles. But we got some other players behind those guys too, like a T. Howard, that can give us some of the speed and some of the things, some of the dynamic playmaking that we lost from Kenny that we can gain from those guys and all those guys together. You never can fill, I don't think, one player's role with just one guy. I think it's a collective development. I think it's a collective agreement amongst that room. I think they got high standards amongst themselves in the inside backer room, and I'm sure Kenny will be watching them, and they know it. And those guys love each other, so they'll be out there playing for each other as well.
With Ernest in particular, where have you seen him come along his rookie year?
You know, just all of the normal rookie development, you know, the control of the defense, the control of the huddle, the ability to go out there and set the front, set the defense, you know, be able to communicate well with the safeties and talk about, you know, where the rotation's coming from, how we're doing it, what we expect from him. I've been really impressed with his constant, you know, development and going out there every single week and, you know, treating each week like he was going to be the starter, whether he was or not. And then to be able to go out there and get a couple plays in the Giants game and when his number was called upon in some of our different packages. So I'm really looking forward to him playing well and doing a nice job for us.
How do his skills contrast with yours?
A little bit different player. You know, you're talking about a bigger player that plays with better length. He's able to use his hands better and get off on and off blocks. Not as fast and not as explosive as a Kenny Young, but they have different traits, different reasons. You know, probably brings a little bit more pop. Maybe Kenny brought a little bit more, you know, quick twitch, you know, in space tackling type of thing. But I believe the guys they fit the mold to the, you know, the structure in which you go out there and you saw the inside backers. And ultimately, it's guys that love the game, and it's ultimately guys that love to go out there and control the game and do things for each other.
As Ernest continues to kind of hit that learning curve of assimilating into that role that you guys expect of him, what do other players around him have to do to sort of help him bridge that gap? Not just, you know, when you guys are in the two-backer sets with Troy, but
Sure.
also when you're in the extra safety packages and those types of things.
He's got a lot of help around him. You know, he's got a lot of guys that know a lot about the game. You know, when you're talking about Bash being out there controlling that front, and you're talking about Jalen Ramsey being either the star, or even when you put Double D inside, the guy that's been around for a while, has a lot of knowledge and a great communicator. And then behind him, Captain Fuller, being one of the guys that can talk to him as well. And T-Rap is another guy that's in the box a lot and plays some stuff next to him and alongside of him. And they're able to communicate at a high level. So the guys communicating around him with him controlling it and him talking to all the guys, I think is the biggest thing. Communication breeds understanding, and it's nothing like that when you're talking about a young player.
Raheem, even as much as you mentioned for what you've already learned about Ernest, Sean was saying earlier this week that there's some stuff that I guess you're just still learning about him even now. What is it, I guess, that you are still evaluating him on, or that you're still trying to find out about what he can do?
You know, I think the ultimate evaluation is going to come this Sunday, you know, when you actually put him out there and you put him into the fire. You know, you put those rookies out there for the first time, you never know what you're going to get. You can only put them in position to simulate what a game feels like. And we've been able to put him out there and simulate those things in practice. He's been able to go out there in the preseason and simulate those things in the preseason, have some success. And he's been able to go out there in portions of the season so far and really try to, you know, make the best of his opportunities. And now here comes the ultimate opportunity, a chance to go out there, you know, elevate your role, be able to go out there, do some things the right way. And I think he'll do those things, you know, like I'm fired up about, you know, watching him play. You know, sad to see Kenny go. I'm sad to lose a guy like Kenny, but at the same time, for Ernest, you're fired up to see him go out there and play and to fill those roles and to fill those shoes.
Is he going to start?
You know, it depends on what package you try to open up the game with. You know, if you open the game in base, you know, he'll be one of those guys out there. You know, if you open it in penny, it'll be a one-backer defense, and then you got to make those decisions based on what you get from the other team. So he could, you know, I know how this league critiques starters. You know, is he a starter in my head? Yes, Lindsey. Now, if you want to look at it, but I don't know if he's going to be the opening play starter, just based on the personnel group as we decided to go with.
How did that transaction unfold from your perspective? I mean, does Sean just come to you and says, hey, we got to send Kenny Young away for financial reasons, or how does that?
Yeah, the organization here in particular do a great job of communicating. Les communicating to Sean, those guys, constant communication. You see Les buzzing around here every single day. So it's not a lack of communication. Sean communicates with the staff. And last year, via Zoom, showed us all different types of ways to communicate. We communicate through text message, we communicate in person, we communicate through Zoom, we communicate through all types of meetings. And the communication turns into us, and to be able to ask those questions on what's the next move, how you move forward, how do you go about your business. So when those things come up financially, I don't have to get involved in, but definitely the planning on what you're going to do next, you got to get involved in. So you always go through the pluses and the minuses of the situation, how it works out, where you stand, and then you move forward accordingly, according to the people that are the decision makers, which are Sean and Les. And, Kevin Demoff and all those guys, I'm sure, are involved in our ownership as well, but I didn't have to talk to all those people.
But do you just get them a text message from Sean?
No, I didn't mean it that way. I meant get the text message, either get in my office or I need to see you as soon as you can. Obviously it happens when you're preparing for a different opponent. So to be able to go in there and talk with them and go through the process is just so many different ways you communicate it and talk about it throughout the process. It's not just on the whim and figure it out that after it's done. It's thought about, talked about, well decided by all the powers to be. Coaches included, position coaches as well. Chris Schuler's involved in that, and whoever position we're talking about. And sometimes you get different opinions from other sides, other walks of life as well. Who's just making all this noise in the back? I'm just joking. But you get all those things done, and you get it done that way.
Raheem, when you're facing a team that has just one win and is struggling offensively, is complacency an issue?
No. Last week was a clear indicator of that. When you play teams in a desperate mode and they're going to go out and you just don't know what they're going to do, whether it's an onside kick, whether it's fake punts, whatever the case may be to try to be in those games, they're going to play, all to the wall, and you're going to get their all every single time. And I think in this league, it's just like that in general. We don't have the luxury of playing 180 games and, an 80-game schedule. We got the guaranteed 17. And all of those games are meaningful. All of those games, you got to bring your best every single week. And you got to give the Detroit Lions credit for going out there and taking their shot. But you also have to give the LA Rams credit for going out there being resilient, fighting through it, dealing with it, getting in some of those trouble-like situations that you've been in before as a coach, either side of the ball. And fortunately, I was on that side before as well when I played Green Bay and a couple of years ago as the head coach. And we tried to steal some possessions and went up there and kicked 3 onside kicks. Didn't have the success, but certainly I know exactly where that comes from. But you got to be ready every single week. You just never know what's going to happen. You got to be ready to deal. You can't look at records, hints, stats are for losers. You got to go out there and play that team that day and be your very best self.
Raheem, just to kind of expand on your points about Ernest Jones. So in terms of the curve that you've set for him, the expectation that you've set for him, do you want him to evolve and probably quickly into the guy who can take over that single backer role?
So,
that flexibility back there?
So Jordan, to be honest with you, let's go all the way back to the beginning, the evaluation of college tape. And you look at him, and you got to sit down in the room, and you got all the decision makers in that room, along with the scouts, along with the people that do the numbers, and they run everything in the building, right? The medical, everybody. And you sit there and you tell them, and you look at him from a player standpoint from his college days, and you say, this is a potential green dot candidate for us that can move forward in this organization and lead this team from the middle of the defense and be an absolute stud for us at some point. And you just never know when it's going to happen. But you got to go out there and you got to think that about those players when you go out and draft them. And now is an opportunity for him to go do it. Now it's up to him to make us right.
Since you came in here taking over a number 1 defense, many, if not most, of the front line personnel is gone, free agency, the trade, injuries, et cetera. How much of a headache has it been from week to week, month to month, and how much do you relish tackling the situation?
I think that's the better way of putting it. I think it's a headache. I think it's you're putting these opportunities for a reason, and you're in these spots for a reason. You're a 6-1 football team because some of the people that have been here and some of the people that you got to develop and some of the people that you got to do. And I think that's a part of it, like the constant evolution of getting better and better and better every single week until it really counts. you know, and these guys go out there and you got to find ways to get wins. Just keep clawing out wins, and then you figure out where you're at, and then you take your best shot to go absolutely out here and elevate your game and elevate your people. I love it, man. This is part of the NFL football. You lose people every single year, and just so happens, man, from week to week, your team is not the same. You know, from game to game, your team is not the same. From day to day in practice, your team is not the same. So all those things are like things that you realize as a coach, all those things you love about what we do.
You wouldn't have liked it as much if you had the 11 guys.
Hey, I would have found a different challenge to love. You know, like it's just different challenges you find for yourself. You know, it's like, hey, you know, let's go find a way. You know, I don't think we got a bunch of people that sit around and make excuses for different things. I think it's just find ways to go get wins. All right, guys.